Okay, with combine testing in the books,
That's right.
let's look at how it impacts our wide receiver rankings and
Oh no,
tiers for the 2023 Dynasty rookie class.
not so
I
good.
will say this class looks much more disappointing than we initially anticipated.
Yes.
But let's just clarify to you guys with some context what the combine means to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think for running backs, it's more important than it is for wide receivers. I would say for
Agreed.
tight ends, it's more important than it is for wide receivers.
Agreed.
It doesn't mean nothing, but it doesn't mean everything. Combine and testing goes into about 10% of our scouting grades. So then, of course, this list absolutely will change with draft capital and landing spots. So please just keep in mind that it is fluid. It will change. We've said that before since we started doing this 2023 rookies rankings. It's going to change. It's already changed. It will continue to change until
Yes.
the NFL draft is finalized. So
Yes.
we've got 5 tiers for you today. Overall, again, a little bit of a disappointing day. We'll talk about these players as we go through. I still think there's some incredible talent at the very top of this class.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 5 or 6 guys that I still really, really like, but we do not have the depth that we had in previous years.
No, we do not.
Okay, let's go to tier 5, Badaki.
Okay.
I got A.T. Perry in here, who I'll be honest,
Did his thing?
outperformed my expectations of him.
He did his thing. Yeah.
I really didn't like watching his film. So that's why his film and analytics weren't really there for him. Tested out really well, so he did improve his score in my database, in our database, but he's still at the bottom for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah. He did. He did move up a couple spots for me. But he's still here in tier 5, so would have completely agreed there.
Yeah, his ceiling just still feels like a wide receiver 3 to me on an NFL team.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm struggling. But definitely looked quicker without pads than he did with pads.
Yes.
Next we have, and maybe people are upset that we have him this low. Hey, we knew this guy was going to be fast. Did we know that he was going to run the second fastest 40 amongst wide receivers? Or maybe it was the fastest 40 amongst wide receivers.
I think it was the. Oh, actually.
Yeah, 4.33. So he was the fastest number. That is Trey Palmer.
Yeah, Trey. Yeah, first one.
This is a player that we didn't really love so much scouting. The analytics, we didn't really love them either. Didn't love that he had to transfer. Decent film. Looks like a good kick returner, wide receiver 3 on a team. The speed absolutely helps, but I just can't have him higher than this right now. And of course, this list will change, but right now, this is the highest I could personally put Trey Palmer.
Yeah, we'll completely agree. I believe a really, really good special teams player, which any team can pick up and is going to fall in love with him in the special teams.
I also have Rakim Jarrett in this tier. I'm curious where you have him. For me, I was hoping he would be a player that would really stand out. I just don't think he did that. 4.44 is a good number, but it's not a number that I think is going to like put him on a map of a team that didn't already have him on their draft board and liked him. So tested out pretty well. The 10-yard split was good, but I don't know, just not a player based off of everything else in our scouting grades that I could have moved up.
Yeah, he is my tier 4. Probably one of my last wide receivers is in tier 4.
Okay.
It's just more of the sense of the talents there. I think he really hurt himself staying in Maryland. Personally, 5-star recruit, 6 foot, 192 pounds. Like you just said, ran a 4.4. I'm not willing to argue for Rakim. I'm happy to put him in tier 5, or maybe there is somebody else we also disagree.
Put him at the top of this tier. I don't care if you want to. You let me know if you want to advocate for him.
No, I don't really want to advocate. I'm happy to have him in tier 5 right now.
He is one of those players, unfortunately, that I think has maybe played his best football. I think his best football maybe came when he was in high school, and maybe I don't want to be disrespectful, but all right. Next we have. Remember how everyone was telling us Tank Dell was too low? Then he comes into the 40. And, look, this is where I have Tank Dell. My goal right now is not to disrespect anyone at all. But based off of those people in our comments who were Tank Dell truthers, what happened? My guy is 5'8", 165 pounds, which pretty much already ruled him out for us. I mean, I'm just thinking of Tutu Atwell, to be honest, when I watch his film.
Right.
And at 165 pounds... you put up a 4.49. That is arguably worse than some of these guys who are 190 pounds and ran like a 4.59 or something. Like, That is one of, in my opinion, the worst numbers that you could see. And people were telling us he had this blazing speed. We didn't see it. I think he's a good separator. He's a very twitchy guy. Good burst, but I don't see the long run speed. And when you put up a 4.49 at 165, I just can't imagine how scouting personnel for these NFL teams are looking at this guy. They're looking at the analytics and saying, yeah, we're going to take a shot on this guy in the second, third round, which is what people were saying after the pro day. And we were saying, guys, the pro day doesn't mean as much as you think it does.
Right.
But everyone was telling us Tank Dell's going to go second round, third round. Look, he might still do that. But I don't know. I was disappointed by his combine, personally.
By the way, he ran the 20th. He had the 40-yard dash. He ranked 20th amongst 20th or 22nd amongst wide receivers.
And he was probably the lightest wide receiver of anyone.
And from everyone's in the comments and wherever you have been, in the live streams, you said he can be a top 5, top 10 guy running in the 40s, and that wasn't the case. I will say he did have the third fastest 10-yard split, 149 for Tank.
We like the burst. We saw that.
So and that's exactly what I was going to say. The quick separation and burst and short area quickness there is exactly what is his strength. And we saw that at the 40 time, right? At the 149. So that's really good for Tank. Not to, I guess, shit on him the whole time, right? So
yeah, no, we don't want to do that. We just think that I just don't think he's ever going to be like this super fantasy relevant player. I feel like he's a gadget guy.
I completely agree.
But, he is one of those players where, again, I'm not saying he's not fast. Testing's going to tell you he's not. What do you think about his film? But when someone is that small, their legs are moving so quick, it looks like they are Dash from The Incredibles.
Dash, gosh. Shout out to Dash.
Right. Shout out to Dash. Digital Dash. Okay, I got Jaden Reed as well in this tier.
Yes, I have him here as well.
Not really much to say. I mean, really not a player who's worth mentioning outside of what he did at the Senior Bowl. I don't know that he gets drafted in the first 5 rounds. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else in tier 5? I'm moving to tier 4 unless you have anyone.
I have Pukanuka in tier 5.
Okay.
Once again, not a guy I'm willing to fight for, advocate for, or do anything. I think he definitely did set himself. I wouldn't say he set himself apart at the combine. I said every time he was doing drills, oh, who's that guy?
Yeah, I think he looked good.
He looked good, and I think that was the most he did. I don't think he ran the 40. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if he did run the 40 time. But I
know he didn't. No,
I know with the way he was running the drills, definitely set himself apart in that area. But I'd be happy to put him in tier 4 if you want to advocate for him or whatever the case may be.
I want to use my ammunition somewhere else. I love the player. He is the back end of my tier 4. So
and he's the top end of my tier 5. So I think it kind of just makes sense.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah.
I'm happy to leave him there and fight for someone else. Okay. Newcomer to this list, who, in my opinion, probably had the second most impressive combine, if not the first. Bryce Ford Wheaton, out of West Virginia. Out of West Virginia. This dude ran a 4.38. Guess what his size is? Guess what his size is at a 4.38?
He's a big boy.
6'4", 221 pounds. That is arguably...
He's the biggest guy here.
The most impressive number we have seen through the 40-yard dash by any player. Not just the wide receiver position. But to be 6'4", 221 pounds and to run a 4.38, that is redonkulous. I absolutely think that he is one of those players where we talk about hopefully the combine for you is something that you put yourself on the map for. And I think he did that here. So I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ends up in the 3rd round, man. I would not be surprised if the team's going to take him. At that 4.38, I mean, why was Tyquan Thornton a 2nd-round pick outside of his speed?
Right.
Now you get someone who's 6'4", 220.
Yeah. Look, he's definitely impressed. I would agree. He's here. He's in this tier 4 for me as well. He impressed. I think what sets him apart is his size, 6'4". There's teams that's going to be wanting to utilize him in specific ways over some of these other guys like AT. I guess I would you can probably argue for 18, but I think he came in a little bit smaller. I think he's like 6'2" instead of like 6'4", 6'3" that we thought. Trey, Raheem, Nathaniel, and Reed. So, Bryce Ford Wheaton definitely up there. He is interesting. I think he's more of like a day 4, day 5 guy with he's a wide receiver 3, but I think all these guys potentially here in this tier could stretch into a day 3 guy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just with a group that did not stand out really at all, I think he did. And that could definitely improve his capital, but we'll see what happens in the NFL draft. But I'm glad we get to talk about him. I got Parker Washington in this tier.
Yeah, my boy.
We like Parker.
My boy.
We just don't know where he's going to be drafted at all. But we do like the player. No. I'm glad that he wasn't 215. Was he 203 or something?
It was 203. Yeah, okay. He was. So Parker didn't test and run the 40, but he did weigh in at, like Zach said, 204, 203, and he was a 215 pounds, at least from when we first scouted him, right? So that was we thought he was more of a running back build, but now he is clearly more of a wide receiver build, losing nearly 10 pounds.
Huge hands, by the way. Mm-hmm. Massive hands, which is good to see. I mean, you saw that he did not drop many balls, really secure hands. I have Cedric Tillman in this tier.
Yes, I have him here as well.
I think he had a good pro day, but again, I still am not in love with the film. He is a larger guy, so with his size, he may be drafted higher than we typically see someone. The first time we might disagree is Marvin Mims. I have him in this tier. I'm curious where you have him.
I do have Marvin in this tier. He's definitely on the higher end. Okay. He has moved up in my rankings. Okay.
Where's he at right now for you? He's my wide receiver 10.
He's my wide receiver 10. So I had him lower before, and he was kind of like a sleeper for me. But what he did in the combine was great. And I need to pull up his
4.38. 4.38, which is pretty good. No doubt. That's good speed.
Right.
We knew he had speed. Mm-hmm. 5'11", 183 is what he weighed in at.
Right.
So yeah, he tested pretty well.
One thing I would say, and I always say this every time when I talk about Marvin Mims, I'm not saying he's the same player as Zay Flowers. I'm saying he is the same build that could hopefully one day lead up to be and build in his attributes to what Zay Flowers already has. And sure. I think that's what's really exciting about Marvin. And like you said, 5'11", 183 pounds. Zay is essentially the same height, or smaller, actually. I think he's 5'9", and Zay is 188 or 185. So, if anything, Marvin has the edge in the height, but I would say has the edge in the height, but Zay has the edge with the overall natural ability.
Every single thing else.
Exactly. So,
look, I don't think we should sleep on Marvin. That Marvin was a little bit handcuffed by the system that he was in, but when you're averaging like 2.5 receptions a game, his production was just, for him to be the player he was to come out of college, I feel like, even in college, targets are earned. I understand it's a different system, but Zay Flowers has this incredibly ridiculous type production. So anyway, let's see. I have Marvin at 10. You have him at 10. So it looks like we're kind of on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. We're on the same page for Marvin.
All right. I have two other players in this tier, being Jalen Hyatt, who we'll talk about in a second, and Kayshon Boutte. To me, both of these players were disappointing. Hyatt less disappointing than Boutte. I think Boutte was the most, honestly, if you can think of a single player you can point to across every position for offense that was the most disappointing, it was Kayshon Boutte for me. We've talked about this before, Badaki, but with Boutte, you and I really liked him. We were trying to back him up, but we couldn't back him up on production. Right? We couldn't back him up on being a good guy who just fights for everything and is great for the locker room. We couldn't fight for him based off field. We couldn't fight for him. The only thing we could say is the talent is still there. We love the talent of this player, and he's probably going to test really, really well. Well, he absolutely tested the opposite. He was extremely poor. He said in interviews that he would run a 4.3. He runs a 4.5. Now, who knows if there's any sort of injury concerns there, but he, in my eyes, dropped drastically according to the NFL. I don't think he gets drafted in the second round like we thought he could.
Yeah.
Maybe he goes in the third round. I'm not sure, but the 10-yard split wasn't good. The 40-yard dash wasn't good. The vertical jump was an absolute joke. 29 inches. That's a joke. What was Marvin Mims' vertical jump? Marvin Mims jumped 39.5 inches.
Yeah,
okay,
it was
at 5'11", 183. And Kayshon Boutte, who is supposed to be this really good athlete, at 5'11", 195, jumped 29 inches. Just in every single aspect of the combine, he tested poorly. And I've said this before, but I'm getting a lot of shades of David Bell here. Player we liked coming in, but holy moly, did he disappoint and put himself on the map in the worst way possible. He put himself on the map of the do not draft list for teams. So I don't know, man.
It's tough.
I'm just projecting that he's probably not going to get the capital that you need to back him up anymore.
Look, for Kayshon Booty, Zach kind of nailed it. The only thing I'm riding on is the talent. I think the talent's there. Maybe he had a bad day. Whatever the case may be, we don't know. But
one hell of a bad day.
If this really translates into his draft capital, then we can put him somewhere else. I do have both Kayshon and Jalen Hyatt higher in tier 3, just purely based off their talent. I would say I would rather advocate for Kayshon because I like him as an overall prospect than Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, another guy, everyone was raving about him that he was going to run. I mean, Jalen Hyatt equaled speed before the NFL Combine.
The truthers in our comments, like, you're probably going to say, what were they saying? Yeah. Because we haven't been high on Jalen, but what were the truthers saying in our comments?
They were saying he was going to run, in the 4.2s, low 4.3s. He ran a 4.4 flat. And he was a guy he's 6 foot, 176 pounds. I would say probably one of the lightest guys here in the combine outside of Nathaniel Dell. In the wide receiver position, clearly.
10-yard split wasn't very impressive.
It just
we
wasn't.
Thought it would be better. There's not like that burst that you wanted.
Yeah, he just didn't set himself apart, which we thought at least he would have set himself apart with his speed, but it wasn't there. So I would personally, once again, rather advocate for Kayshon based off of just based off of the overall talent. I think it's there. If a team can get a hold to him that can utilize him, whether that's in the third round, in the second, wherever he goes, I'd rather have Kayshon in tier 3 than in tier 4.
Hey, I'm fine with that. I have Kayshon Boutte one spot higher than Jalen Hyatt. I do think that Boutte, out of the two, I would say is more subject to fall than Jalen Hyatt. Because I think Hyatt had like an okay day. I'm not saying he tested really poorly, but based off of the expectations of everyone who was in love with him, I don't think he met those expectations.
I get it. I get it.
Okay, so next, let's go to tier 3. We'll have Boutte at the end there. I have Rashee Rice here in my tier 3 right after him. Do you also have Rashee Rice there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, a player that we don't really love for his route running ability. We don't think he's a very good route runner, not very polished. Definitely needs to grow in that area, but very good athlete, can play bully ball, good after the catch.
Yep.
And I think he tested pretty well. 4.51 is definitely disappointing, but the 10-yard splits, even better than Jalen Hyatt's, for example. The vertical jump was 41 inches. So he tested well. And again, combine testing in general only goes to about 10% of our grade. I don't think he stands out anymore, though, for me. He's not this guy that I'm like, oh, he could really be a superstar, but I still have him in this tier.
Yeah. Rice.
I think at best he's a wide receiver 2 on a team.
Yeah,
I don't
he's
think
at best.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's at best a wide receiver 2 on the team, and I think what he did, once again, like you said, didn't stand out, but I think he was faster than what we all expected. At the Senior Bowl, they were talking about him saying he's pretty slow, he's not doing it, he's not separating, but for him to run a 4.51, I think doesn't put that to sleep, but it's not saying, well, he's not that slow, right? So
I feel like the 10-yard split was more impressive than the 40.
Yeah, it was 149.
So let's see what the NFL thinks of Rashee Rice. I wouldn't be surprised if he falls out of like the second round, but I just don't know what people think of him.
I would agree.
Next, I have Josh Downs. I know this is a player that you've been pretty high on, so I'm curious where you stand. To me, I'll just say my piece and then I'll throw it to you. This was disappointing. This was disappointing for me. 4.48. Is it a bad number? No, but when you're 171 pounds, is it a bad number? Yeah, it's pretty bad. 5'9", 171 pounds, 4.48. Good 10-yard split, good vertical jump. So he tested well in other areas. With Josh Downs, what you're relying upon as a prospect is your film and your analytics with him. Put up huge numbers, had the production, to be comped to the Tyler Lockett's of the world, but did not test well. So I don't think testing numbers would have improved your rankings of him. Not you, but just anyone in general. But
Right.
where do you stand on him? Is he in this tier, or like I don't think there's no way Downs is going first round. That's just not happening. But maybe he gets into the second round.
Yeah, exactly.
Mid-second. But
and I think that's exactly where I have him. I have him in tier 2. He's one of my last guys there in tier 2.
Okay.
It's difficult because you're right. He didn't test well in the 40 time, but everywhere else that we thought, maybe he would have struggled, he excelled. In the 10-yard split, I think the 40, the jump, the vertical. So I think he improves there just based off of his height, right? I mean, he's a pretty small guy and he can get up there. He's jumping higher and doing better things in those areas. And maybe it needs to be very, very minuscule. But I think that kind of evens it out. I think the 40-yard dash, yes, does disappoint.
170 pounds
with the speed, but
4.8.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. I think he's definitely significantly faster than that. But maybe it was, once again, a bad day. But he is in my tier 2. I just think he sets himself apart more than who we have in tier 3 right now. I think that's what's different. And I don't think he necessarily hurt his draft capital tremendously. I mean, I think he could be on the edge of the first round in your rookie mocks, and now he's more solidified. Okay, mid like 206, 205.
I think he'll go earlier than that. I think he'll go like 202.
Yeah, so like even if that's the case, and if we do believe that, I think he still gets mid-second.
We saw people drafting in the end of the first round.
Yeah.
In NFL mock drafts, we saw him going back into the first round to some people.
Now it might be a little bit different.
I just don't think that's happening. Like he's not getting that capital anymore.
Yeah. I'm happy to wait. Maybe there's other.
Let's just put him there and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, maybe there's other people.
I have Xavier Hutchinson here in tier 3. Where do you have him?
Yep, I have him here as well.
Okay. I would say based off expectations, Hutchinson, the way he wins is through his route running. He's a technician route runner. And we didn't really expect him to be some sort of burner, with burner speed or anything like that. So overall, I'm happy. I don't think he exceeded expectations, but I think he met my expectations. So can't really move him down, but if he doesn't get third round draft capital at minimum, I will be forced to move him down.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're into tier 2, and this is why I'm struggling because I can't maybe Downs should be in his own tier, right? Maybe there should be an extended tier and he should be in of his own. But I'm about to add Jordan Addison right beside him for me, and there's no way I'm considering these two guys in the same tier. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's what makes it difficult for me.
Yeah, and I think, I guess talking on Jordan Addison, another guy that a lot of people are saying, well, he didn't test as well either, right? 4.49, if anything, arguably slower than Josh Downs. 1.56 10-yard split. His vertical was 4.3 compared to Josh Downs, who was a 4.85. So if we're comparing these two different players, two different builds, completely agree. Yeah. But I think so many people have so much more hate on Jordan Addison and saying, well, we thought he was going to be this guy. Fair. What the hell's happening, right? So
you know what? I think that's fair. I think that's a fair. Here's what I'll say though.
And I'm not shitting
film
on Jordan.
And analytics though for Addison, I think clear Downs pretty easily.
Agreed.
Me. Like him as a route runner, it's not even the same conversation. And I feel more confident in Addison's ability to separate in the NFL than I do Downs based off of film alone. So
yeah.
But, I think that's a fair conversation. Right now, I did have someone move past Jordan Addison as my wide receiver 3.
Talk it up.
And that was Zay Flowers.
Zaza.
Who I think had a really, really good combine. Already loved the film. And then the combine kind of in our database they were already very close in my numbers. And the combine kind of put him just right edging above Jordan Addison. 4.42. Good 10-yard split, good vertical jump. Well, decent for his size.
Right.
So I've got Zay Flowers here. But to be honest, the more I look at this tier, I think this is fair.
Right. Okay.
I think this is fair to have all 3 of these guys in this tier.
That's what we want. That's what we want, have all these guys. I mean, oddly enough, they kind of all not do the same thing, but in a weird way,
similar size,
different
attributes and strengths, but similar size.
They're all kind of like these undersized guys that could be something. I guess Jordan Addison undersized, now 176, right? We said wild. Thought he would be bigger than that, but
yeah,
173.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I was disappointed by most of what happened for Jordan Addison at the combine. Yeah. So I have Quentin Johnston in this tier. Keep in mind, I don't have Downs. I have Downs here.
Right.
But I know he's your wide receiver 1, so I'm of course gonna have him in tier 1 as well. For me, JSN is my wide receiver 1. He's been my wide receiver 1. I think he came out, he dominated, put up great numbers. Didn't run the 40-yard dash, but every single testing point you could have for him with how he wins in the NFL, he absolutely dominated. He did. No one else at the combine, in my opinion, looked like Jackson Smith-Njigba. He set himself apart. He was in a complete tier of his own. So I personally would have him in tier 1 alone, but I know Johnson is your 1, so I feel like it's fair to put him right beside him.
Yeah. Both of these guys are in my tier 1, JSN and Quentin. Both of these guys, JSN, we haven't seen in a long time, sets himself apart because he's first time we see him working out, first time we see him running drills, which is really exciting. Him catching the ball, being very, very smooth. Quentin Johnston now, originally coming in at 6'4", 215 pounds. He's now 6'3", 208 pounds, which, we were talking about this in the live stream. Oddly enough, is significantly better, right?
I'm happy with it, yeah.
And people, and not just you, the fantasy community, myself, we are all happy with Johnson coming in just a little bit smaller, just a little bit lighter, because it kind of just fits the mold of where
it makes the D-Hop comp easier. It makes the T. Higgins comp a little bit easier.
Exactly, and you can kind of see him going towards that pathway in the build at least. You saw him kind of improving, catching the ball with his hands, not with his body. He's doing these routes looking very smooth. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba and Quentin Johnston did set themselves apart in my eyes. I loved them. Every time you saw they were coming up on a drill, we all stopped. We paused, at least for me, stopped and paused specifically for both of these guys to see how they were going to perform. Yeah. And I like exactly what they did in the combine so far.
I'm seeing mock drafts that still are disrespecting JSN. Like, I don't see JSN falling out of the top 15 now.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not as high on Johnston, so I'm not disrespecting him. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't see Njigba falling out of the top 15 anymore, personally.
Yeah. We'll and see. I think there's a lot of teams that might just say, you know what, let's just go defense. This class is not that strong, because we saw the wide receivers in the past couple of years go really high. Right, people trading up to do that, and I'm not saying I don't see these guys going in the first, like in the top half of the first. I think the middle is the sweet spot for these guys. 15 maybe to 20 or 13 to 20 feels really comfortable.
Yeah. All right, guys, those are our rankings. Well, collectively, it would look a little bit different, individually, but these are our collective rankings. Do us a favor, drop a like to show some support. It definitely helps. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. I want you to comment down below what you agree with, what you maybe disagree with, and we'll have a conversation about it. But really appreciate the support, appreciate the love. We'll talk to you in the next video. See you then.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.